California's fires are still raging. For business owners, this is not just a natural disaster. This is a very potential financial disaster. Do you know how to protect your business, tap into relief funds, survive this crisis? I wanted to break down disaster relief options, tax strategies, and how to bounce back stronger than ever. Imagine that your storefront is damaged. The employees cannot come to work, and you are losing customers every hour of the day. The cost of this disruption is really high. Many business owners can lose $10,000 a week or more in revenue while being closed, and rebuilding can cost six figures or more. This is not just about the money. This is about protecting the business that you've poured blood, sweat, and tears into. You've built this with a lot of grit and determination and countless late nights. And now you have to fight back to get your business back on track. And, what kind of losses could we have? So we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about loss of records, right? Physical records, papers, any type of files, contracts, IDs, physical products, or physical documentation, digital data, right? If you have like desktop hard drives, servers, you could have a lot of loss right now because you don't have backups or anything that is being, secured and backed up in the cloud. Another type of damage and loss you could have is going to be in merchandise and inventory. And it leaves a lot of businesses without anything to sell, without all your inventory being damaged or being lost completely, spoiled due to power outages. Imagine all the restaurants, the grocery stores, all the businesses that require refrigeration. Other losses could be the loss of staff because of all the closures and all the safety concerns. Your employees could have lost their homes as well. They could be displaced. They could be handling, family loss and all of that. The forced closures, right? The fires could have resulted in mandatory evacuation, roadblocks, the utility, the forcing, all the businesses in the area to shut down temporarily. And then you could have customer loss. The revenue loss is probably the absolute hardest one for business owners because without revenue, you can't pay your bills, you can't pay your employees. So another damage or loss they could have is going to be the loss of equipment. And if you're suffering, I just want you to know that there is hope. There is a way to get back. And there are multiple different types of available resources for you. One thing I don't want to forget before we go into the next section, or to actually talk about what available options you have and relief by the federal and the states, I really want to talk about really quickly about the emotional impact. It is devastating to see not just you, to see your neighbors, to see all the business owners in your area, everybody on the same street that had, everything burned to the ground, to see the restaurant that you've been going through, being closed or no longer there, to see all the shopping centers that you've been shopping to being gone. And I know that could be very difficult and can be very, taxing on your emotional health. So I do understand that. And I feel for you in all of this. So today, what I want to do is, again, if you're a small business, I want you to have the fastest path back to generating cash flow, because without cash flow, we cannot really exist as a business. We want to make sure that we talk about some of the options that you have available. So let's go into disaster relief options. So number one, you're going to have federal assistance through FEMA. FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which offer grants to cover damages that are not insured, right? So in this case, you might get up to $40,000 for business equipment, inventory, even rent for a temporary location outside of the fire hazardous area. And as an example, if you're a restaurant owner, on the Palisades area, you can get $25,000 to replace cooking equipment destroyed by the fire, right? I know it's not enough to cover everything, but it is a start, right? So another federal disaster relief is going to be the SBA, the SBA Disaster Loans. So the Small Business Administration offers low interest loans for physical damage, for working capital, and you can have interest rates as low as 3% for a 30-year loan type scenario. If you're a boutique owner, which is many in the area, you can borrow $75,000 to repair fire damaged, walls and inventory to keep your business afloat. Besides the federal disaster relief, we have some state options as well. California has a few different options, and there are a few different agencies where you can go and get some type of relief, grants, different types of assistance that the government will provide. The California EDD has a couple of different options, and that is going to be for your payroll taxes. If you have employees in the state of California, that will give you a little bit of relief there. The California Office of Emergency Services has grants and some tax incentives for rebuilding, and you have to apply quickly because funds are always limited. If you are a business owner in the LA County right now, you want to apply for this grant as soon as possible because deadlines are really tight to get those grants. The grants are money that you receive that you don't have to repay back. So this is probably going to be the top of your list. You want to get the grants as soon as possible, or at least apply for them. Then you go through the loans and all the other FEMA options that you have available. So I would choose a ranking. I would go to the grants first. Okay. So that's for the relief on the federal side and the state side. Now, let's talk about tax relief strategies. What kind of strategies do you have in a type of a loss like a fire? In the tax arena, we call this casualty loss deductions. And the IRS allows you to deduct uninsured fire losses on your federal tax return. I'll give you an example. Let's say you lost $50,000 worth of inventory and the insurance gave you $30,000 for that. You could potentially deduct the difference of $20,000 on your federal tax return. Okay. Again, it depends on what kind of return do you file and all the other items in between. After the 2018 fires, a lot of businesses in Sonoma County, they see thousands and thousands of dollars claiming this tax deduction. So please make sure that you don't forget about this one. It's an important one that will cover for the remainder of the losses that you had that were not reimbursed. We talked about this. California Employment Development Department, right, is giving the affected employers in the area a 2-month extension to file their tax, the state payroll reports and pay the taxes, all the deposits, without giving you any penalties and interest. That's 2 months from the original due date. Okay. Now we have some additional things on the federal side. So the IRS always reacts to disasters. So you typically get an immediate extension. So right now, if you're in a federally declared disaster area, which LA County is, you automatically get an extension on your tax filings and payments. So the LA County has been granted an extension until October 15, 2025 for all payments and all filings, including quarterly estimated tax payments, business taxes, personal taxes. Use this precious time to get back on your feet, then deal with your taxes. Taxes is not the absolute priority right now. So these are going to be your federal and state tax incentives right now. Let's go into some business continuity strategies. So we're going to have a couple of different ones. Insurance payouts. You want to file your claims for business interruption insurance as soon as possible to cover lost income. I hope you have insurance, right? Delaying all of this could cost you tens of thousands of dollars because, it also takes a long time for these claims to get processed. Okay. So if you're a cafe, let's say in LA, and you collect $50,000 in business interruption insurance, it can cover your rent, payroll, doing the 3-month closure that you might have. I know it's hard to hear this when you're in a disaster and you have to rebuild, but you want to prepare for the future because the fires right now, again, they're off season. It could happen again in a few months. So prepare for the future. Everything you rebuild with a disaster recovery plan in place. Have digital backups of all your important documentation. Consider setting up a remote work strategy for your people. How can you continue the business and generating revenues and cash flow even though you have a physical location? Can you ensure continuity if something happens? Consult with your CPA about your tax breaks and just put that aside for now. Get your insurance claims moving as soon as you can. You want the full checklist, and to guide you through all the process and the things that we mentioned, you can download it someplace on this page. Make sure that you download it. Take a look at that. It's going to have the links to all the agencies that I just mentioned. California has a lot of different options right now, both federally and state. We feel for you, and let's turn your disaster into recovery together.